Presence, which is on view. Excuse me, it's got a pop up here. It's, yes, this current exhibition, which is up at Taller Puertorriqueño until the Saturday, May 13th, which will be the last day. I'm going to talk a little bit about the exhibition and about her work as an artist. I know that Nitza Tufiño has been a practicing artist for over 40 years, and she's done a lot of public work. But a lot of you might not have been familiar about the works that she's been doing, about her family and about her experimental work. And that's what we'll be touching on in Asserting Presence. I think this presentation will last about 45 minutes, and I mean about an hour. But in the 45 minutes, there'll be a Q&A session. Maybe you can leave some questions in the chat box. Well, Asserting Presence is an intimate exhibition of Nitza Tufiño's prints and paintings of family, friends, and places she has visited. In her work, she addresses the duality of seeing and being seen. To Tufiño, the former seeing is an act of acknowledgement, and the latter, being seen, is an act of claiming ground and asserting agency. With a vast body of work, she commemorates the people she knows and addresses historical inaccuracies. In her work, she has also brought attention to the richness of the indigenous people of the Caribbean, cosmologies, the Taínos, whose influence persists. To Tufiño, her subjects are not strangers. What she does, she would say, is not about me, but we. But in her artwork, she also pushes how representation is simultaneously presented, and the viewer must engage with it. About her background, born in Mexico, Tufiño is the daughter of the Puerto Rican artist Rafael Damast and the Mexican dancer and model Luis Maria Aguirre. She considers herself bicultural, being from multiple backgrounds, Puerto Rican and Mexican, or Mexi-Rican. She was raised as a Catholic, but was influenced by the Caribbean orishas of Santeria in her art. She celebrates the diversity of her children's ancestry with a half-Jewish daughter and a half-Japanese son. She is now a practicing Mexi-Rican Buddhist and a proud member of the SGI, the Soka Gakkai International, a Japanese-based organization dedicated to happiness and world peace. Her childhood in Puerto Rico surrounded her with artists, dancers, musicians, filmmakers, intellectuals, and activists. Upon arriving in New York in 1969, Tufiño became involved in the founding of El Museo del Barrio, for which she created the original facade artwork. At this time, she was also a consultant on Puerto Rican and Caribbean art in the Brooklyn Museum at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, making her voice and the voices of Latinos as part of the mainstream conversation. These activities led her to the installation of public works around New York City, which visually celebrate Puerto Rican, South American, and Caribbean cultural and artistic heritage. Turfiño was also a founding member of El Taller Boricua and is the master printmaker and director of the Rafael Tufiño Printmaker Workshop. As a Friends of Puerto Rico board member, she opened the Cayman Gallery in Soho exhibition space, later known as the Museum of Contemporary Hispanic Art, MOCHA. In 1990, MOCHA shut its doors and the archives was donated to Hostess Community College of the University of New York in the South Bronx, New York. She helped facilitate that. In her artwork, pedagogy, and civil activism, Tufiño has been a tireless champion of diverse representation and Latinx agency. I just want to give you a brief overview of one piece of her public work that is very significant when we talk about Taíno representation. This is ceramic work that she has done that took over 10 years, I believe, just to get it installed at the 103rd Street station on Lexington in New York City. This is what we mean when we should reference about using Taíno imagery and its cosmology and referencing to art and also being seen. This is, for me, an act of placekeeping because this is located in the heart of Spanish Harlem. This is the current exhibition of of Asserting Presence at Taller Puertorriqueño. I would like to basically, I want to talk about her work of portraiture. I mean, I feel that this is something that's, that she's always been doing as part of her practice. And I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to ask Tufiño about the importance of portraiture. This is going to be a conversation between me and Tufiño and Nitza on her work and the importance. And one of the things that really that attracted me when I saw Nitza's work. I mean, and I'm going to say that Nitza is she's constantly creating work, and she's creating work in multiple mediums and in multiple styles. And I feel that she's sometimes on simultaneous and in many series at once, and the series could be in one medium, and there could be a series maybe in another medium. But what does me about the idea about when I say about being seen, and when in my conversation, and that's something that started me in that area of thinking was with the 103rd Street Station, because when you were talking about the cosmology, this is something that people were not familiar when she was in conversation with the city to create this public art. So this series of work right here, this is a self-portrait of Nitza Tufiño, which was done through 1919 to 2020, and the height of the COVID epidemic. And this is a series called Surviving COVID series. This is the entrance of Taller, and this is one of the multiple of the families. So Nitza, I want to begin with, can you tell me about your, why do you do portraits, and what attracts you to this?
It's not only portraits, because you just by putting the murals, the Neo-Borinquen, which is on 103rd, I was the first female woman of color to receive a commission like in 79 from NTA. But because of the union, I had a lot of problem with the contractor. But the thing is how when I talk about presence and asserting, it's because our people have had a hard time from the time of colonialism, because we've been sort of like being erased, through the Indians, the slavery and all of that. So you tend that you want to be seen, and you want to assert your culture and who you are, and you want to embrace everybody around you, not only your family and your people and your community. You want to embrace everybody. So if you have the tools and the means, to be responsible with these materials, then you tend to go in that direction. Something pulls you to go into that direction. Why portrait? Portraits are very important since ever, because they talk about illustrious people, especially in Puerto Rico. Francisco Oyer, who was a painter from Puerto Rico and was in Paris during the time of the Impressionism. And he was teacher to Cézanne and to Monet and Pissarro, over there in Paris. He's done portraits, and now he did a portrait of McKinley, who was a governor with a map of Puerto Rico, and now that being shown in the National Gallery as asserting the presence, of what's happening with Puerto Rico in 1898, how the Americans walked in, and the war and all of that, the Spanish War and all of that. So he did that portrait. So I said the same thing. Why do portraits? I feel the same way. You know what I mean? Once you're gone, the portraits are still going to be there, and people can relate to them. And then through history, it also changes how you make them, depending on the history and what's happening at that time. So that's why I did those monoprints, because everybody that my family used to come and see me, they were wearing masks. So I said, okay, this historical correctness that is happening in our lives. So now why not take it that way? So I started doing the monoprints, because the monoprint, you just painting the plexiglass real quick. It's kind of like loose, not too rigid. And then you pass it through the machine, and you have these wonderful monoprints, just one. and you get a ghost too if you have enough ink in it. So I did a bunch of these.
I think that also that you've been doing something with
And also the
talking also-
pastels. I did a lot of to commemorate my great grandmother, because in my family in Puerto Rico, and this is something I guess it happens in most Puerto Ricans and maybe in Cuba, Dominican Republic, you know, the Caribbean, you pass through slavery and your sibling never tell you the story because it's too painful of what they went through. So these are things that you discover because they're either she died at 112. I was 17 when she died. So you know, she went through a lot because she lost a lot of her siblings. She didn't know where her parents were, her sisters and whatever. And she was the matriarch in this family because we were born out of her in a way. And this is my father's side. So I decided, well, I'm going to bring in that connection between the African culture and the Spanish culture, and how they survive by having the saints and coming in the boat through from Africa, because her father was Yoruba, her mother was the Taíno Indian. So shows, you know, and also our fruits, what we use, the guayabas, you know, watermelon, corn, rice, you know, the different flowers, the amapolas. And I wanted to do this homage to her in terms of the pastels.
Yeah, so I feel like I'll also see like there's a sort of like a passing of the torch or a connection because she's a great grandmother.
Right. And also,
yeah,
this
is
is something that you learn from your family about the saints. You know, they talk about Yemayá, you know, in the Catholic religion, she's called La Virgen de Regla. You have Ochun. They were sisters. One is sweet water and the other one is the salt. And water is very important. We come from water. And she's wearing this habit. This is a habit that whenever you wanted to ask for something, either somebody got sick or you needed something special, she was a big devotee of Saint Anthony. And Saint Anthony in the African religion is connected to Ebewa. So she wore this brown dress with this light blue, sort of like, you see that she's wearing them on her dress. So you recognize that, and she wore this every day as a pleading, asking to this saint for something. So seeing this thing, and people forget in culture, you see it when you were a kid, but then when they see it on that paint, on the pastel, they realize, oh my God, yeah, this is part of my culture. So that's asserting. That's having presence. That's not negating who you are. So if I do it for myself, I want to do it for others. And also it's important that, how would I say that, we recognize it, because it makes you feel positive. It makes you, it brings a lot of good things in terms of who you are and your family is. So these things are very important for me.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I feel like in a way that these are some sort of like monuments to people, I mean, to your past. Like, I feel like this was like Llegada Nuestra, Llegada de Nuestro Pueblo, are these personal monuments to part of the history, to the people that you admire, to your mother, and to where you come from. But I think there's always with a tinge. I mean, monuments.
Well, this painting, I mean, I was sort of like pushed really to do it and to think about it through El Centro, because my grandfather's papers for working, he came here like in 1917. That's when we got the Jones Act, the American citizenship, and he had no papers to work. So he had to go to the Federation Administration Office to sign off so that he could get papers to work. And that's where I found the paper. So that was the link to link the library. Like if people are looking for somebody in their families, they could there maybe find something. And then I realized that it was important to tell our stories. Our stories are not being told, and it's not being, history in our part of our immigration has not been really written too much about it. So that's why I decided to do that painting. Why this medium? Because before this, I used to do very experimental paintings. Very, very experimental, very creative. You know, when I got out of school, I was into something else totally. Why go back to this? Because this is serious painting and people take you seriously when they see that you can do this and you can do everything else. They take you seriously. And that was the whole point. I'm already 74 and I'm always going to keep, I haven't gotten many grants. I haven't gotten much recognition like other people. But, you know, I decided, well, I'm still going to do it, you know, for my family and for the community. So to me, this was very, very important.
Yeah, I think that we must keep in mind that since, you know, when we reason for El Museo and Taller Puertorriqueño and other organizations similar to those, like Taller Puertorriqueño, are that when they came around in the late 60s and 70s, there was not a lot of representation or access for people of color into any canons, into museums, and a lot of their personal stories and the contributions were never really being recorded or acknowledged. So, so the idea of asserting presence is in making yourself known is a form of activism, and the work that you were doing, like when you're saying to the I think it was the Brooklyn Museum, when you do an outreach was part of became part of your practice, I think, or maybe it was before that. I'm not exactly sure.
Well,
I don't know what came before.
Museo, well, the thing is that, you know, with the lack of money, you know, and also during that time, during the 60s and the 70s, during the times of the young lords, you know, that all that, you know, we used to put garbage because the garbage wasn't picked up. There were issues that were more important than the arts. Okay, so it was health and housing. But the thing is that it took us a long time to really fight to get a little bit to where we're at, and still we're not anywhere, you know what I mean? Because the key here is education, sending kids to school, going to college, you know, getting the degrees and stuff like that. And we're still, you know, people think Blacks and Puerto Rican, you know, baseball, basketball, you know what I mean? They think that if they go this way because of racism, you know, they're going to make it in the world, and they're going to make money. They're going to become rich. You know what I'm saying? In the arts, you're not going to become rich. You're going to bust your ASS. And if you make it, you make it. If you don't make it, but if you have the heart for it and you don't care, you're going to still do it. You know what I mean? Like the one that, if you have the passion, the whole problem is to have the passion for it. And the passion will drive you and do it. And that's the way to do activism. And that's the way so that the voice gets heard out there. That's positive. By using the brush and the pen as a weapon, not going around and killing people. You know what I mean? You know, the gun violence, you know, it's really terrible, you know, what's going on in America. And also asserting ourselves, I'm Mexi-Rican, but I'm an American. I'm an American. Puerto Ricans are Americans. We're all American. We're in this country all together trying to make the best country that we can. Why? That's why everybody wants to come here. Everybody wants to come here. But that means that we have to think about health, about, you know, education, a lot of stuff, you know. And not that our institutions that we build, you know, like Taller, Taller Puertorriqueño, Taller Boricua, Museo del Barrio, a lot of other organizations have gone out of the picture. Like Mocha went out of the picture and it was doing great work. So this country has to put money into our communities, you know, and into our artists and our writers. And all of this is important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's, you know, there's something else that kind of, when I look at your work and what you've been doing, and made me think about, you know, it's sort of like there's something about in your work, you sometimes are keeping a record or making a record And I want to know about your thoughts about in your art about record keeping in the art form. Are you showing scrapbooks of your life? Like here, papi leyendo, is this or
Sort
then
of. I think
and then you got
you're right, because I'm not really a writer. I'm not a writer. I don't sit in a typewriter. Maybe once in a while I have it in my notebook, in my sketchbook, I might write some thought that or something that came up. But I always try to use it for some kind of artwork that I'm doing, and that's how my other ideas come about. Say taking photographs, uh, writing things, you know what I mean, saving things. It's a for I like telling history. Every day you make history. We make histories in our families, which is important. And in the world, there's always history every day, and then later when you look into the future, you're planning for the future, because you don't want to repeat the same mistakes you did today. You want to make it better for the future, but you look at the past. But you always have to be in the present. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in Buddhism, we have to be in present time. In present time is very, very important. And to have wisdom and to know what to say, and to know exactly what to say, and that you create, how would I say this? You assert people, you try to say the right thing, not the wrong thing, you know what I'm saying? And to stay positive, even though negative, when you have negative situation or negative things, it's because things have to change and they have to make a turn. It's not necessarily that something bad that happened, it's totally bad. It's up to you to turn it around and turn into a positive kind of situation. The same thing when you're painting. When you're painting, you make mistakes in the painting. With color, with this, you try that. But then you're having a conversation with the painting, with the artwork. You're having a conversation. It goes back and forth between the colors and the lines, and what you use. And then you make notes. So maybe I could use this and I'll try it next time. Or, you stop. All of these things come with maturity and how much you do the artwork every day.
Yeah. Talking about colors and sure, this is a wonderful painting. I think if you call My Mother and My Father and Mother, Mexico, 1942.
Yeah, I wanted to, that's like in 1942 there in Mexico. And my father was going to school to La Academia San Carlos. And I wanted to make justice for my mother because she worked so hard to help my father. Usually women work hard to help their men, or their children. And sometimes it is not reciprocated. So I said, I gotta make justice to my mom. She's the one taking him. He became a painter. He helped him a lot, and he became very well known, and he did very well. So, but it was because he had my mom. She had Luz. She was a model. They met in school. She was part of the Fridos with Frida Kahlo during that time. So he got to meet, the big guys, Rufino Tamayo, Diego Siqueiros. The only two that I ever met and that I sort of like used them as a mentor when I went to school was Siqueiros. He was living in Cuernavaca. He was doing that big mural for the humanity. And all the new experimentation that he was doing, he brought about why we paint with acrylics and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff. A very good friend with Jackson Pollock. So we have all this intermix between all the artists in other countries and America and all of that, it needs to be studied more, we need to be studying more. I think that we leave it to the wayside, so all these things are very exciting and are good for the artists, and the students where they're studying also, you know what I mean, to meet all the artists, that have maturity and stuff like that, so that because they have questions and they wonder about things. So why should you rediscover the wheel if somebody already has it? Like sometimes I like making paper, but that's not my forte. I'd rather go out and buy good paper to do my prints and do other things. You know what I'm saying? I leave the hand paint to the experts, but everybody has a different take and they want to do it in a different way.
That is true. Artists are always talking to other artists, and they're always in conversation. But
Yeah,
one of the details I love about this paintings is could you see your mother's clenched fist leading
yeah,
your father, who became the successful artist, and you can see his brushes like it's some sort of foretelling. And she's the one with determination, and he's the one kind of looking forward. So
right.
I think I was. This is one of the things that captured me about this.
Thank
This is
you.
another painting. Yeah. And I love this painting of the details. This is of your father reading. Your father was born in Brooklyn, like you said, and he was an
Yeah, he
avid
was born
reader.
in Brooklyn, from Puerto Rican parents by the Navy Yard. And in the past few years, he moved to Puerto Rico when he was 10. He used to go every year to visit my great grandmother, the one you saw there. So my dad, they consider him, okay, he's a Puerto Rican painter. We're a colony. So, but actually he was born he's an American painter. Okay, he's an American painter, just like Jackson Pollock. He was born in Brooklyn. Don't erase that. They call him in Puerto Rico the painter of the people, but actually he's American, and he did a lot of great things when he was at Taller Boricua, with Carlos Osorio. We did with the Metropolitan. Carmen Boca Chica was in this one Museo del Barrio when we did the first exhibit of the heritage of Puerto Rico with Thomas Hoven. So I've been out there in the trenches with all these guys. We took over at one time the office of Hoven. A lot of artists and other activists, we walked in there and we took over, and they had to take. It was really embarrassing. And then because of that, then we got a couple of other exhibitions. So we had to do those things. So my activism is, I do it in the painting, but it's not really the painting, it's in actions. you know
Yeah.
you got to take action. You can't sit, oh, this happened, what, you got to take action. Either write something, either go and do something, but don't stay still and complain and whatever. And also come up with new ideas. How can we resolve it? It's not only throw the problem out there. If you see it, try to come up with solutions. And painting, I mean, I did this of my father because my father did a lot of reading. Okay. My house was always full of books, and that's all he did all the time. Sat on the couch and he reading. And you wonder, what is it that he's reading? And things like that. And this is already when he was like already in his 80s. He was already
Mhm.
in his 80s. So, and well, this is him. And we call him El Gran Tefo.
Yeah. Well, I think you're an amazing painter, and I don't want you to self-serve because you're an incredible artist, and and I know your dad is too. And I think that in your painting, by demanding and by making these statements and by demanding to be seen and acknowledged, is an act of activism. The details
Right.
that are captivating me about this paintings are just like the hands and how you did the shirt, are incredibly beautiful. And I think that, and I mean, I feel like, sometimes the idea of, I don't know,
And then this is,
acknowledging
this is my
giving
father.
monuments to people important are very
This is
incredible.
my father, but remember, he's a painter. He belongs to the people, okay? All his painting belong
Sure.
to the people. But these are the hands of the painter that did all those work. Those are his hands.
I think your love for your dad and the way that he did his hands are, and I love the fingers on the books. It's really very special, and and just sure on the shirt, and then the glasses, which
And
I
that
feel
was
like
his
just because
favorite
that's
shirt. He loved that shirt. Okay, that Hawaiian shirt. Wow, he never took it off. He was always walking around all San Juan with it. So that was one of the reasons why I did the painting. And it's really
if I
funny. You
see
do something like this, and then you're not gonna do it again. This is just happening at one time, one moment, and that happens with the painting, and you gotta move on.
yeah. I want to talk about like the idea about history. I think when you were talking about like and also the idea of a conversation of like artists being in conversation. I think you did a painting called The Conversation off a photograph you did. Maybe you want to
Right.
talk about this exhibition and I'm in talking about contributions by in this person by Francisco Oyer.
Yeah, this is really amazing because this is a conversation that these fellows are having in the patio of Pizarro. Pizarro was Danish, but he was from St. Thomas. Francisco, if you look at all of them look older. The only one that looks young that is in the middle is Francisco Oyer. And they're having this conversation, and then you have the younger boy there who is Pizarro's son, Lucien. So you wonder, what is the conversation these people are having when Cézanne was the father of modernism, and you got Monet with Impressionism, and Pizarro, and then you have Francisco Oyer, who actually has one painting or two paintings at the Louvre, which is called El Estudiante. We think that it might have been Betances, one of our illustrious person who fought a lot for the freedom of slavery in Puerto Rico. And he was studying medicine in Paris. So this whole thing brings you to a conversation of history. You want to find out more about it. Who are these people? What are they talking about? Which is the same thing that now this is great about the internet, that we can have this conversation in Zoom, and you can have the artists right now, like myself and the curator, and having this conversation with the people that are watching the conference or whatever. And we can have this talk, and we can have this talk by looking at the painting too. So I was very angry because many times that I opened a book or I went to a museum that they had, they always referred to Francisco Oyer, Cestero, as the Spaniard. He did study in San Fernando's in Spain, in Madrid, but he is no Spaniard, he is Puerto Rican. And he lived in Paris for many, many years. I think his cousin was also owner of the Moulin Rouge. A lot of people don't know that, okay? And they were Puerto Ricans. So there's a lot of things that I wanted because of this painting I did, but I'm going to make them justice. I want to make justice to Francisco Oyer. And right now, go and see the show at the National Gallery in 1898 that they're talking about reversing imperialism and colonialism, not from the view of the Americans, because the Americans president, what they wanted is to bring to the world a democracy. And they thought that doing it that way and taking over land like they did in Hawaii and all of that. But Francisco Oyer made a painting of McKinley. So, and there's a lot of other paintings, like a portrait of Lalani from Hawaii, you know, who was the princess and then the queen, and she fought a lot to get freedom, and so that Hawaii didn't become a colony for the United States. So all these paintings, you know, what triggered me off after so many years, I said, if I don't do this painting, nobody else is going to do it. So I got to bring justice into this situation.
Yeah, and I think you did. Yeah, and you definitely kind of like, you know, art historically kind of like created maybe an oversight, and the idea of thinking maybe that that Impressionism and other art forms were just solely in Europeans. And then, I mean, Camille Pizarro was also, I think, was born in the West Indies, you know. So
yeah, St. Thomas.
Yeah, and you know, and Francisco Oyer in Puerto Rico, you know, and those are, you know, it wasn't just one-sided.
Yeah, right. Nothing is one-sided. We think, you know, like nothing is one-sided. There's many, many things coming at you.
I would also just before we go, and I want to touch on some of your more experimental work, but I just want to just talk something about, like, I feel it's really important to you. I mean, it's the landscape, but I also feel like your kind of your spiritual practice, and I feel like sometimes you know, as humans, maybe we're always trying to think about secular, and sometimes we never think about how maybe your spirit, our spirituality and our landscape kind of seeps into our work. I know that maybe sometimes you've been thinking about using a sort of commentary with your grandmother, great grandmother Juanita, talking about her faith and her syncretism, you know, with African religions. But also to feel like in your faith as an artist, as a human being,
Yeah.
and the
Well,
journey that you've taken,
I'm a Buddhist.
that.
I'm a Buddhist. I actually did this a la prima in Kyoto. I love Kyoto, and I love the how would I say, the scenery and the landscape in Japan is fantastic. But also I like the landscape from the Caribbean and the landscape in Mexico. They all have sort of like the same kind of feeling, that peacefulness, that thing that you can sit there and contemplate the plants, look at the sea. But in this case also you listen to the sounds of the tree waving or the sea, and things like that. And this is good for your spirit. And when I did this, there's a go show by Nichiren Daishonin that he talks about winter turns into spring. And what happens is that when you go to find yourself and become a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, you never turn back. You always are looking forward. The same thing, you have never seen a winter that turns later on into summer or jumps, you know what I mean? Well, with climate change, we still don't know what's going to happen. But it's sort of like in life, whenever you go through hard times, you will go through easier time and you will accomplish and get out of one situation and move into the next and have more peace in your life. And, so it goes with the way, the ups and downs, you know what I mean? So nature is the same thing. When you look at it, it's not there anymore, then the flowers appear, then the winter comes and then the water changes, so it's about change. It's about changing nature and about you looking at it and how, when you look at it, you respond to it and what it's telling you. So it's in and out, so sort of like philosophical in that. And I did those in Kyoto.
Yeah, I think they're wonderful, and I love the idea how you thinking about like the artist is responding to what's around it. But I'm also, and I can see the wind when you look at these paintings. If you do come see it, I think they're lovely, and you can see the wind in rustling in the leaves. And when we made it in conversation with what you've taking your own practice even to the Caribbean, and not thinking that that's they're not exotic to each other. So
Right,
that's
right.
because you're finding that in the nature there.
Right.
But I also want to just go into, because I feel like everything that you do is kind of like you have elements, like the idea of like the portraiture, the idea of like it's kind of a scrapbook effect of of what you see in your life, the recording, and then you recycle these thoughts and these ideas, and then you try to recontextualize them in these different thinking about it. And you did a series in the like I think in the early 80s,
In the I started doing
like
this during the
1979,
80s.
1980s, the clothesline image and the coat hanger. So,
Yeah.
and I just want to, maybe you can touch upon them. And I think we
Well, the
presented
thing
them in
is,
Taller.
during that time, my daughter was very little. She was like 3 years old. And what happened was that I did not have a big space and I didn't have a studio. So your brain tries to figure it out, what things you can do, and it gave me the idea to do this, bring it home. And also looking at the clothesline, like we put the clothesline outside. Well, people use dryers now, but hanging the clothes outside, you're looking at a dress or something. That dress has history. The person that wears that has history. So, so there's a beauty into it. It's not only looking at it at the form and how it's made and how the wind might be blowing at it to dry it and stuff like that. So you sort of like start thinking, I'm gonna do this with a sewing machine, and I'm gonna put color and drawing, and I'm gonna take it to another level, So I started doing this, a bunch of them through photograph. I like to take my own pictures. I like to do my own thing. I don't like, sometimes you could do collages, from magazine and stuff like that. But I prefer to do my own thing. You know what I mean? You gotta own it. You know what I mean? It can't
Yeah.
be somebody else's photograph. Is it's their photographs, and it's how they took it, and you have to respect it. You have to respect other people's works of art. I want mine to be respected and not to be changed and cut out and whatever. So I respect other artists, their work. We gotta have that kind of respect. And this is from Pedro Pietri, the who wrote the Puerto Rican Arbitrary, great friend. He did a lot of activism for AIDS and all of that. And I did some pronto plates, which is sort of like a form of lithography with photos.
Mhm.
Most of the photos I took of him in his studio on 42nd Street. And so this is another thing that I love to do in my work.
Right. I feel like, yeah, and it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I feel like this is someone you knew, again, as a record. And it's interesting that you're talking about the idea of necessity, because I mean, you said you were a mother and you had your daughter, you didn't have the studio space, but you created these wonderful works and you're constantly working. And then you had to be kind of creative in your process. And you mixed mediums. I mean, this photograph, this is Prismacolor wax pen. I wrote this is cotton, and these are two-sided, which made it kind of interesting, just trying to figure out how they should be shown. And you're often, and as a person who has students thinking about like, how they should be presented, it's kind of challenging because you want to be able to show both sides. And I sometimes wonder if like when you're doing these works, do you want them to have do you want them to have a conversation with each other?
Sometimes,
Do you want one side to
yeah.
have a conversation with the front side
Well,
and the back side? There's no real front side or back side.
These are more free, and they sort of have different things into it. But I have done other ones that are more specific, like in a series. Like I did a whole series of my dad were photographed. They were like 10, or that they were exhibited like for Domestica. And I did that like in 79, 78, something like that. So that was a specific, but then in the same format, you know what I mean? So I tend to take history or whatever and then do something with that and things like that. I like working on that. Like my brain is always like calculating and thinking, you know what I mean? And then if I don't want to forget, I write it down on a notebook. And I save the photographs, save the photographs in boxes or drawings. I save them in boxes, and that's what I do, and then buy cloth, and then I use the sewing machine like if you were doing a drawing with the zigzag or the lines. It's sort of like a drawing.
Yeah, you're drawing with thread.
Right,
It's
drawing
kind
with
of a little bit
thread,
of fiber art there.
So it has many things, the Mexicans have those big banderines that they put outside that they're cutouts. I like to do that too, and I have done a series of them. But it's all everything that comes through your culture. Like you reimagine it and you change it a little bit, you know what I mean? But that's what it's done, the prayers, in Tibet, they use the prayers, So and they hang them all outside, these are different prayers. So these are different family pictures, friends, writer, things that they have said that you feel that is important. And then also the hangings, I started doing them like if it was my closet. And all this history, you put it inside the closet and you close the door. You know what I mean? You open it up when you want people to see it, or you wear it or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's a whole concept, it's home with all these different things.
Yeah. I also think the idea of like hanging clothesline and things in closet, it's extremely personal. I mean,
Right.
there's when
Extremely personal,
the
but
entire
it's
thing,
your
coming out of the closet, like you hide things in closet, that maybe you don't want people to share. But here you're kind of putting it out there. I mean, in this one, I mean, you have Ronnie, who's your partner, who's been your advocate, and And I see, and you see her in the most relaxed, on the couch, and you see her throughout your work, and it's, and it's very, it's
La
it's
musa,
touching.
la musa, my muse.
Your muse.
So, yeah. So, I use sometimes my children, friends.
Yes,
So
definitely. Yeah, Pedro Pietre. I mean, you had in
with Pedro,
La
I use
Llegada.
some of his poem, because I used to buy his little pouch envelopes that had the condom inside and had a poem outside. So now I'm putting them in different things, remembering him and stuff like that.
Like this work right here, I kind of find fascinating because it's a checklist of your works. You can sort of see it.
Right.
And you sometimes you incorporate it in your paintings. You're thinking about
Right.
it.
The information. This information actually, I had a show at El Centro, talking about the history of different things that El Centro or the library. And I use some of them, and then I use some of my drawing. This is a lithograph. You can see it all complete, like it's over here on the side.
Yeah, I
That I
wanted to get
did,
a detail of it,
right, and then I put the information on it, and then I started doing the sewing and all of that. So,
yeah, I feel like it's like nothing gets wasted. So everything sort of is important, and I think that's also something to take from. Well, I think maybe it's a good time to take questions.
let's see what happened.
I don't know how this is, if there are any questions.
I want to learn more about Nitza's what it was like to sort of form the cultural organizations that she helped found, and sort of like the important people, what were some of the challenges. I want to learn more about that journey that Nitza was one of the leaders of in New York.
Well, let me start with first, how I have a lot of family that lives in El Barrio, okay? I was finishing school in Mexico, and I came to New York, and I came to see my father in New York. And he was with Friends of Puerto Rico, which is an organization that was on 33rd Street or 31st Street and 3rd Avenue. And Amalia Guerrero, she was a dancer. She was the one that put it together. And there were many, many artists that were there from the period of the 60s in Puerto Rico. But anyway, she was one of the first ones that started it. And then later, that sort of like they had arguments, and it turned into something else. And my father, who had been an artist in residence there, he went to Real Great Society, which is an organization that Lyndon B. Johnson had created, where they gave money to different organizations around the country that were poor. And they had a group of architects there already, Marcos Dimas and Adrian Garcia and Martin Rubio, who were coming out of the School of Visual Arts, who were having sort of like, some of them had gone to the Vietnam War. They got to school in the GI Bill. And they were sort of like having this argument with the system because they were not being accepted in the system with their art. They were into pop art and stuff like that. When I came back from Mexico, I went to see my father. He was at Taller Boricua. And they all got excited that I was there. We were across the Young Lords. It wasn't called Taller Boricua. It was Real Great Society. And this is in 1969. And that period of the Young Lords, where they did a lot of activism in the street and all of that. And we also helped them by doing posters. My father got them posters from Leftkoe to put in their offices and stuff like that, and other organizations they had around. So one part of the health, housing, and whatever was also the arts. The poets were involved in it. Pedro Pietri, who is a poet, involved in it. Felipe Luciano, who later became a newscaster, and all of that, and Yoluba Guzman, a lot of people. But the thing is that I got involved with it. They asked me to get involved with them, and I said yes. I was the first woman. Then later on, we were giving classes to the community. Then the parents started coming in and saying that they wanted to form sort of like a museum or a place where they can have their children come in and learn about Puerto Rican history and stuff like that. And that's how we really started, through the parents, okay? And the Board of Education, District 4 in El Barrio. Ralph Ortiz was a teacher for the School of Music and Art. And through the Board of Education, he was the one that did the papers of incorporation for El Museo del Barrio, okay? But his work was, you know, very controversial for the community because he used to kill chickens on piano. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. People didn't understand that. They were not artists. You know, these are people that are very simple and all of that. You also need to understand that most of the people from Puerto Rico who lived in the countryside already had, by Divetco, Division of Education in Puerto Rico, who was formed by Muñoz Marín, the governor, where he had social workers going into the communities, and he will find out that to organize them as cooperative. They will find out the problems that they had. Then the writers will come in and write stories, and they will make movies, and they will make booklets and all of that to educate the people in the countryside and to help them if they needed a bridge, if it was health and whatever. And that's why Puerto Rico is very well known for the posters, the silkscreen that they did during that area, the books and all of that. The Germans were very interested in what they were doing there, and they started doing it in Germany. Then they won a couple of prizes in Venice and all of that. So my father, who had been with Divetco, Carlos Osorio also was part of Divetco. They had sort of like the same ideas when they started taking these young artists at Taller Boricua and turning it around, you know, for the people, you know, in doing posters for the people, teaching and all of that. So we were very big in organizing the parents with the community so that they could form El Museo del Barrio with Ralph Ortiz. But Ralph Ortiz didn't make it to be the director because they didn't want him. They wanted a school teacher who could do curriculum. So that's how we started. Then what happened was that Taller got incorporated in 1970. So I continued with Taller Boricua. El Museo del Barrio got incorporated in 1969 too. So what happened was I was sent to El Museo del Barrio because Carlos Osorio and Turfiño felt that they were never going to make the connection to Puerto Rico because they didn't know the players, and that they were not going to, the people in Puerto Rico were not going to open up because people are very like, well, they're going to take advantage of us. Nothing is going to happen. So I was a very key and important person in that with the Museo del Barrio. And I started taking Marta Vega to Puerto Rico and Hiram Maristani, who was the photographer. And that's how Hiram took all those pictures in Puerto Rico. And I connected them with the right people, with Ricardo Alegría. That's how we were able to do the show with the Metropolitan, because Ricardo Alegría knew Hoven very well, Thomas Hoven. He also knew Bert, who was with the Museum of Natural History. So that's how I started with El Museo del Barrio and also Taller Boricua. Then later on, when I went to be on the board of Friends of Puerto Rico, we decided as a strategy, and one person that's very important in all of this with Mocha is Susana Torruella Leval. She's a curator. She used to come and do some of the curating for Caimán. And then later on, she was a curator for Mocha when it became the Museum of Contemporary Arts. So we moved it to Soho because we were looking for different strategies. How do we make a museum? How do we make an education component? How do we survive? The museo was funded by the Board of Education. It was funded for 2 or 3 years, and then after that, they didn't want to fund it anymore because too many people were coming outside of the state of New York to see the museum and take advantage, you know, because, you know, it was growing and that was the way to go and all of that. So they didn't want to pour the money. So we had formed a non-for-profit, which was called Los Amigos. Los Amigos del Museo del Barrio. So it had two corporations, the Museo del Barrio and Los Amigos del Museo del Barrio. Because we could receive funding from the Rockefeller Foundation. We had a mobile that went around with the exhibits to different places. So we were getting money to do those things. And then the National Endowment and all of those. So then that became history. You know what I mean? We had our arguments with El Museo. So we went to court, we fought it, and El Museo continued, and the Museo, it is what it is today. When MOCHA, Museum of Contemporary Arts, closed down in the 90s, the Latin Americans didn't, because we always, the Puerto Ricans have embraced everybody. It's not only us, it's also the Latin America, because we're part of Latin America, even though we're a colony. But the thing is that we embraced everybody, and we had a meeting at El Museo del Barrio with some of the Latin American artists, like Liliana Porter, Mitzer, all of that. And they wanted to make sure that El Museo will include them, because now they didn't have a place where to go. But the fact is that it's most important that the Puerto Ricans are the ones that have created all these institutions, and all the other cultures from Latin America or the Caribbean have been able to grow and be part of it. But it's been because of the Puerto Ricans that had the vision and the activism and the fighting to do this. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden you have Latinx. I wouldn't consider myself Latinx. I consider myself New Yorican, because when you say New Yorican, it tells you right there the story and the fighting that we have to go through to make all these places happen. So mainly that's it, you know. And we still have a lot to do.
It's amazing just to hear about how deeply these organizations came from the grassroots, came, you know, right out of the community, and how responsive the things that you helped build were. That's really an incredible story. Thank you.
You're welcome.
She definitely, Nitza, you definitely have firsthand experience with a lot of it. But I'll just want to make just a caveat, because I'm thinking maybe our Chicano brothers and sisters probably would say also that on the West Coast, the Chicano movement was incredibly active, and they built a lot of the foundations. So I mean, the Puerto Ricans and the Chicanos are kind of the largest, Spanish-speaking, people here in the States, and they've been incredibly active, in coming in from both sides, creating institutions which were, like for me from Venezuela, I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm very grateful, because they definitely they built a foundation, that I'm benefiting from. But and I think
And also
Puerto Rican,
the black Afro Americans, okay, like people.
No, I'm just talking about the Spanish speaking. Yeah, but definitely the African Americans and Asian Americans.
They also
and
helped.
Native Americans. I mean, but those are the other ones.
Oh, and the Native Americans. I remember when we did the Whitney counterweight in Soho, and we invited and we went after the Whitney like crazy. You know what I mean? Native American with this and that, because they call it American art. You know what I mean? So what? We're American art. We're not part of this. So there was a lot of fading. Now the Whitney had a show on the after Maria or whatever. So a lot of things are sort of like picking up, and now you have younger curators, Latin American, Puerto Rican, the Chicanos, trying to build forces out there, So, we still a lot of stuff needs to get done.
Yeah.
So, especially arts in the schools. Arts in the school is very important in the educational system.
Here. So as predicted, there's a lot to speak about, and there's so much to learn from you, Nitza. It's amazing. I'm so honored that you have agreed to be in this program at PAFA. Your story is so important. Rafael, your work is so important. Taller Puertorriqueño's work is so important. It's been a great honor. I want to thank everyone for coming. I hope that I will put this out on a recording and we'll share with everybody who registered. So you will have the recording. And I hope that our paths cross again. The show ends this weekend. Do you want to speak a little bit, Rafael, about what's happening this weekend?
Well, yes, the show, well, the gallery will be opening at 10 a.m. and it'll be closing at 5. So if you can, and it's free. So if
I'll be
we
there.
have parking in the back.
I'm gonna be there at 10, so I'll be there the whole day.
Oh, that's great. So if you want to continue this conversation, meet Nitza, please come visit. I'll be at Taller too for at least for part of the day. So hopefully it'll be a wonderful day. There's parking in the rear of Taller Puertorriqueño. It's free. It's a wonderful building. You can go to our site, tallerpr.org, to get our directions. We're on North 5th Street, between Lehigh and Huntington. So again, thank you, Laura and PAFA for inviting us to speak about Nitza Tufiño's work, and then thank you, Nitza, for I think this is a wonderful conversation. I always learn more about your work and about the past when I talk to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and listening to me.
Have a great day, everyone.
Can I say something? I want to say something quickly. Please, life gives you something, put something out there. For whoever, for the community, whatever. You receive, give something back.
Yes, we'll do.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.